Yeah, my first memory of skating, I guess, is when I was a young kid. I received one of these small penny boards, you know, the classic from the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Red plastic, a little bit flexible, the gel red wheels, nice and fat, open bearings, and receiving that and thinking that was a pretty good gift. And I spent a lot of time skating that up and down the driveway. And the biggest achievement that I ever sort of learnt on that board was the tic-tac. And it was just tic-tacking up and down the driveway, up and down. We had a paved driveway, so the amount of times that I get hooked up and I'd fall over and I had, you know, skin knocked off the knees and elbows, and never had a helmet or any gear. But that's my earliest memory of skateboarding. And from there it sort of just, you know, progressed. I got better equipment, and yeah, that was my first memory. Yeah, so I grew up in Geelong, and I suppose the first lot of boards that I received were from, they were Kmart jobs, so they were terribly cheap and nasty. And the first board that I got after that little red one was a Kmart deck as well. I remember earning some money doing yard work, spending $30 on this skateboard from Kmart. It was horrific. It had no nose, no tail. It was, you know, horrible. But from there, sort of progressing to some decent equipment, I ended up getting an Aussie deck, the OZI deck, and that was my first sort of real skateboard. And I got that from Speakies, and really Speakies was the go-to place in Geelong when I was young. So when I was skating in 86, 87, 88, Speakies was really the place to go. And that's where I got my first pro deck. I got a Sims Jeff Phillips, and that was my first pro deck that I bought with my own money. And that's where I got my gear. Well, I was a bit of a fan of the Alva team, because that was sort of the bad boys of the scene. So Johnson, you know, Gibson, and, you know, all of those Alva guys I enjoyed watching skating. Jason Jesse, he was skating for Santa Cruz, I think, at the time. So I sort of liked the bad boys, kind of. The Bones Brigade were cool, but I never spent, you know, too much time stoking on. It was more the other rougher guys that I enjoyed sort of, and I looked up to, and I wanted to skate like. Chris Payne, I think. I got memories of watching him skate, and, you know, he was a really powerful skater, and he sort of went pretty big, and he had a lot of style, and he was a pretty cool looking dude. Yeah, and that's I think one of my favourite local skaters that I ran into. I think, yeah, he was one of my favourite Melbourne skaters. Down in Geelong, we had folk like, you know, Will Searle was a pretty rad skater, still is, and Simon DeSassio, he was another pretty good skater. And in that same crew, there's a fella called Paul Verdi, and he was a ripper, and he still rips too. So yeah, it's funny. A lot of those guys are still skating, and they're still tearing it up. I think when I started skating, there wasn't any great impetus to skate. I got a skateboard, and I loved the feeling of. But when I first stepped on the board, I was very uncomfortable and unsteady, and I loved that feeling of getting command over the board, and to feel it more steady under my feet, and to make it go where I wanted to go, make it stop when I wanted to stop. And I think that it was just a bit of fun to start off with. But more and more I started enjoying, as I skated and I got my skills up, I was able to sort of skate a bit more aggressively, and to feel a bit of power in what I was doing. And it felt really nice in that whenever I had some worries, and you know, could be trouble at home or with the money and those sorts of things, jump on a skateboard. And it even happens now. It doesn't matter what's on my mind. As soon as I skate, all the rest of it just goes, because I'm focusing on what I'm doing. And I can go into a skate session, and something heavy's been happening, and I'm feeling it, you know, and then end up skating, and right at the end of the night I'm packing up, I'm thinking, you know, I haven't even thought about that drama, and that's now what I get from it, and the camaraderie as well. So because I learnt to skate by myself, I went down to the cryo bowls, and, you know, I started to skate with, you know, a few of the crew down there, and just getting that sort of group of people to hang out with, and the camaraderie that comes with skateboarding is also what sort of drives me to keep going. I was pretty lucky. So when I was skating, we had some facilities to skate. So we had the Torquay vert ramp, which is great. We had a mini ramp down at Torquay as well, and the cryo bowls, and that was my stomping ground. I grew up in Bellpost Hill, and that was just up the road from cryo bowls, and that's where I learnt to skate. So you know, I had some places to go and skate, and as I mentioned before, the private ramp that Dean Turner had out at Marshall. So we had a few places to go. So locally, it wasn't too bad, but we'd also go and try to find places to skate in Geelong. There was a bank underneath the Bay City Plaza in the car park, and we used to go in there and skate that, and that was a lot of fun. There was a few pillars there to carve around, and security would always chase you, but you'd get a good couple of runs before someone come running in to chase you out. So that had happened. And then also remember, we do a lot of car park skating at Focus 5 building in Geelong. So it's a multi-level car park, and with some of the guys that I used to skate with, Ash Foster is about the lightest one of the group, and we used to boost him up, get him to get onto the first level, go down, open the door for us, and we'd all go up, and then we'd have races down there until we got kicked out by security. So, you know, you had the regular skate facilities, but then you also found a few other places to have a bit of fun at. And to tell you the truth, where I spent a lot of time when I was learning to skate was just in my own driveway and in the street out in front of the house, doing ollies up onto the curb. And on our driveway had, you know, small sort of curbs running down the side, and that's where I learnt to do grinds to start off with, so just little slappies. So you pretty much skate anything and we'd be pretty happy. If you had a curb and a car park, you'd keep yourself entertained for hours. So yeah, so I never really had any trouble with the cops. They really didn't chase us down and give us any trouble. And conflicts between skaters I never really came across. When I was young and learning to skate, there was a crew that used to skate at Cryo that were the older guys. And even though I was learning to skate, it was a school of hard knocks with them. If you did the wrong thing, you got in their way, or you dropped in on them, or you did something that wasn't quite skating etiquette, you learnt really quickly not to do it again. They wouldn't belt you, but they'd scare the shit out of you and then take your board and they'd throw it down the creek. And then you think, well, I won't do that one again. So you'd have these sorts of things, but they were just teaching us how to skate, to be skaters, and to have good skate etiquette, right? So, and the only other thing that I can think of, there were never really sort of clashes between skating groups. I never had issues when we saw guys from Melbourne or Ballarat or whatever like that. But I remember we went up to Melbourne one day on the train, and we were skating. I can't quite remember where. It was an underground skate park, car park one time, and Borgie and the Badlanders had turned up, and we knew who they were, and they didn't really threaten us, but we felt kind of threatened because they were these mean-looking dudes covered in tats, crazy hair, drinking beer, and having a skate. So we just sort of quietly left. Never really had an issue with them, but yeah, we were always respectful and a little bit fearful of those guys. Yeah, I suppose we're talking about how things go full circle, and I got out of the skate scene for a while. I wasn't skating, but I was always mindful of skateboarding and kept an eye on things, but 25 years later, I had a chance to go to the screening for all this mayhem, the Taz and Ben Pappas movie, and I was on my way up in a tram, and I received a text. I was going up with a couple of mates, and I received a text on my phone telling me that it's Tony Hallam here. Can you give us a lift from, I think it was Spotswood or something like that? And I read it a couple of times, and I turned to my mates and go, I just got a text message from Tony Hallam. And I mean, that was kind of cool, and he was a rad skater back in the day, and he still is a rad skater now. And I just think, he's become accessible, which is pretty cool, and I've skated with him a few times, and he's a really rad guy. But I thought that was pretty fun to get a text message from a guy who sort of influenced my skating when I was younger. It was cool. Yeah. So I suppose I've been lucky in that there's been no one in my sort of immediate skate crew that has had any tragic end while skateboarding. We haven't had any terrible accidents where someone's passed away, so I'm thankful for that. The only tragedy, I think, is there was a skater down in Geelong. He lived in Marshall. His name was Dean Turner, and he was a rad vert skater, and he spent a lot of time at River's Edge down in Geelong, and he had his own ramp out at Marshall as well. And we used to skate with him all the time and spent a lot of time skating at that particular ramp. And he went on to join a band with his girlfriend Adelita, who he had for years, and the band was called Magic Dirt. And I sort of found out through media that Dean Turner had got cancer. He got married, had a couple of kids, and then I heard that he got cancer and died, which was really tragic because he was such a nice bloke. He's a really thoughtful fella, and I remember he gave me my first ever songbook. He lent me a Clash songbook, and I took that. I never actually gave it back to him, so I kind of feel pretty bad. But yeah, it was just quite a giving bloke, and to know that that he passed away in such a tragic circumstance with a family and a wife. Yeah, so that's the sort of tragic story. But thankfully, we've not had anyone close by me that has passed away with an injury from skateboarding. I think I got a lot of what I get out of skateboarding back then. Now I get that again. I think maybe it's having endless time to skate. Back in the day, it's the way I commuted. I did it in my spare time. You know, I didn't have commitments. I had a board. I could go skating anytime I wanted to. I suppose maybe that's what I miss now, that I've got commitments and I have to carve out specific time to go for a skate to make sure that I still get my stoke on and enjoy my skateboarding. But I think about that, maybe it's just having as much time as I'd like to skate. Yeah.